It's Fabs, and I am back on the Believe Fantasy Football Show. Tass, I had a little bit of problem with the internet earlier this week. So we had this crazy storm down here in South Florida a few days ago. And it's like one of those storms. I don't know if you've ever been in like a really severe thunder and lightning storm. Lightning was like cracking. The thunder was like so massive that the ground would shake. And everything went out.
Jeez.
Power came back on maybe an hour and a half later. Internet never came back. So apparently something got hit by lightning. Internet was gone. And couldn't do the show on Tuesday, but we are back today. Good to be back with you. I'm assuming there's no
Glad to have you back.
Storms or anything going on in Southern California, right?
Not at this time, but I think that maybe all the stormage that was occurring in Florida might be a sign, and maybe it's a sign that Justin Fields is going to have a good week this week. That's an omen that Justin Fields could turn it around.
Playing the Broncos. I mean, they just gave up a 70 burger. So
yeah, if he can't do it this week, when can he?
And it might be, if he does have a good game, it might be time to flip him. We're going to talk about him later on in the Stardom and segment portion of the podcast. But let's start off with Thursday Night Football, as we all do. We got Lions and Packers at Lambeau Field. And the Packers are an underdog at Lambeau Field. They're getting 1.5. The over-under is 46. That's the latest total on DraftKings as of this recording. The money line, the Lions are minus 125. The Packers at 105. The Packers are an underdog for just the 9th time in their last 71 home games. That's no surprise because, they've had, great quarterbacks and great teams. They're 5-4 against the spread as a home dog. So you don't really get anything there from a wagering perspective. Now the Lions have only been favorites in a game at Green Bay once since 2015. They were 2.5-point favorites. Brett Hundley was the quarterback of the Packers in that game, believe it or not. And the Lions did cover that spread, but that was a let's say an outlier. The Lions typically are not favorites at Lambeau Field. Also, this is interesting. The Lions are 11-7 against the spread in their last 18 road games overall. And in those 18 road games, the under has come up 12 times, or about 67%. 46 right now is the over-under. We've got some guys returning to action. Tom Pelissero had first announced that David Montgomery was not going to play, but then corrected himself and said that he was going to play. So Montgomery is going to be back tonight. Christian Watson is expected to play. Aaron Jones also will be apparently ready to go. Although they're talking about a snap count. I don't care. I'm playing them. I don't care. These snap counts have burned me in the past. I don't care. I'm playing them. Running back is a nightmare right now, so I'm playing them. And so from a Lions perspective, I mean, you're starting Amon-Ra St. Brown, you're starting Montgomery, you're starting Jahmyr Gibbs. Although Jahmyr Gibbs is the RB26. People are treating him like he's a low RB1. He's not. Right, Tass? I mean,
just the nature of the position right now. That's
I know,
the
but
only
he's
reason,
not even.
right?
But he's not even been that good. I mean, last week, rushing wise, with Montgomery out, his totals were decent. He had 1 catch and 9 points. So
yeah.
I know everyone's waiting for the big breakout game, but dude, if David Montgomery's playing, it ain't coming. It's not coming. So a few stats on Montgomery. He has averaged about 16 points per game in 7 career games against the Packers, including 4 games where he scored more than 15 points. So he's had success against Green Bay, of course, dating back to his time with the Bears. Last week, Gibbs played 42 snaps and had 18 touches. And the 2 games prior with Montgomery playing, and remember in the second game, Montgomery missed part of the game because he was injured. But Gibbs averaged 25.5 snaps, 11.5 touches, and 10 points. So can you expect them to give you more than 10 to 12 points in this game? I would probably guess not. I'd rather play David Montgomery. I mean, listen, he's the better fantasy back right now. Sam Laporta. Remember that whole trend of rookie tight ends not being able to make an impact? Well, I also said on the podcast, this is going to be the year that if it ever breaks, it will, because we've got so many good ones. Laporta's busting that trend in half. He's at tight end 2 right now. You got to play him. And what's crazy, he is 18th in routes run among tight ends, and he's still the tight end 2. 18th in routes run based on fantasy points data. So I'd like to see him run a few more routes, but still, he's putting up great numbers. As for Jared Goff, Tass, this game is on the road, right?
It certainly is. You
I
said
ain't playing him.
He's
averaging 11.6 points per game in his last 15 road games, all with the Detroit Lions. In 2 road games against the Packers as the Lions quarterback, he's averaged 14 points. Not playing him in a single quarterback league. Not doing it. He's easy to predict, man. And maybe I'll be wrong. His last game in Green Bay, one of his last 2 games in Green Bay wasn't terrible. I think he had 17 points. The other one was atrocious. But I'm not playing him in a single quarterback league. Over to the Packers.
I love that you're committing to it. You're committing to
love trends. I love trends. And people will crack wise about Fabiano. What does it matter? These trends mean nothing. The coaches were different. The personnel was different. Tell that to Jets fans and their quarterback situation and how they've absolutely been awful drafting first-round picks for the better part of the last decade plus.
Yeah.
Tell Jets fans that trend doesn't hold water. Come on.
I mean, I know Lions fans feel there feels to be a different air about this team this year, but we'll see. This will be a really telling game. Interesting that they're already getting through 4 weeks, 2 Thursday night games. So
yeah. And by the way, another trend, curse of Barry Sanders, which I've talked about. Only 3 games. Jameer Gibbs hasn't been great so far, but he's got a long way to go. Hopefully he has a great career. I'm rooting for him, but I love those trends. All right, Packers side of things. You know, Jordan Love is the QB4 right now. Now, last week I didn't love him because he was playing the Saints, and that's a tough defense. He still had over 20 fantasy points. He's averaging 22.5 points per game. And the Lions have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks since the start of last season. Jordan Love's to start him. Aaron Jones, as I mentioned, is supposed to play in this game tonight. He's in the RB2 conversation, but the Lions have allowed the 6th fewest points to running back since last year. Jones has scored 40-plus points twice in 9 career games against the Lions, but he's also been held under 10 points 6 times. Still, I'm playing him. God, I need him desperately, man. I got nothing else at running back in some of these leagues. Christian Watson's supposed to come back. Last year, he had 1 bad game, 1 good game against Detroit. The good game was that late season Week 18 game that the Lions won. He scored almost 17 points. Luke Musgrave, play him. Lions have allowed the most points to tight ends this year, and they've given up 12 touchdowns to the position since the start of last season. That's tied for most in the league. Luke Musgrave is another young tight end, rookie guy. Laporta, we'll talk about Dalton Kincaid, and Musgrave are all good starts this week. All rookie tight ends, man. All real good young players. All right, let's go to the player props. These are from Jen Piacenti, our pal over at Sports Illustrated. She likes Luke Musgrave over 37.5 receiving yards. No shock. She likes Sam Laporta over 42.5 receiving yards. Again, no shock. And she likes Jordan Love over 16.5 rushing yards. No shock. Jen's great at player props. Let's put down a few bucks on those 3. I think you'll probably at least go 2 out of 3. And the tight ends, man. I mean, listen, these young tight ends are putting up numbers this year. They really are. And it's, this is going to be like that 1 year where the rookie tight ends actually make an impact. And this class was we're not even talking about Michael Mayer. That guy's done nothing. And a lot of people thought that he was the best tight end in the entire 2023 class. He's done nothing for the Raiders. By the way, speaking of the Raiders, did you see the Chandler Jones stuff on Twitter or X?
Yeah, I mean, that relationship with that team's not too hot right now.
I hope somebody gets in touch with that guy, because that seems like something's up with his brain right now. I don't know what's going on, but he's,
But that and the Devontae Adams comments too, which
the Raiders are imploding already, but it's the Raiders. Yeah,
right.
Devontae Adams, I have a couple of shares of him, and I was a little afraid of him, and he's been awesome because you could argue he's the best wide receiver in the game, physically, skill set, probably the best. But boy, Garoppolo's got to stay healthy, and the Raiders got to start winning games, because if they don't, I don't know what Adams is going to turn into. I don't know if he's going to become a problem child. He's not real pleased right now. I can tell you that.
Yeah, you couldn't tell last Sunday when he was playing, though. I'll tell you that much. He looked pretty decent Sunday night. He looked like same old Devontae Adams. I mean, as long as he's on the field, there's nothing to worry about.
And Garoppolo's in concussion protocol. Looks like he's going to be okay, though. At least the last reports are. If Garoppolo plays, then you're good. He's he's fine as long as Jimmy G is playing. I need to see what happens if it's Aiden O'Connell. I'm maybe a little scared of that. All right, let's go into some DFS bargains and fades for the week. And these are all based on DraftKings totals. At quarterback, CJ Stroud, $5,600, start him. Garoppolo, if he plays against the Chargers, that's going to be a high-scoring game, $5,300. Andy Dalton, how about Andy Dalton last week, the Red Rifle? If he's going to start this week, and that's still up to debate as we record this, $5,100 against Minnesota. Not a bad number if you're looking.
What do you have? 49 pass attempts last game? I mean, he's going to throw the ball. He's going to throw the ball a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they got to keep up with the Vikings offense. The Viking offense is pretty gnarly. They ain't going to win many games this year, obviously, but their offense is very good. Running back bargains. Jerome Ford's $5,400 against the Ravens. Jalen Warren's $5,000 against Houston. Khalil Herbert, I mean, if you want to go cheap, $4,700 against the Broncos. You can go cheaper with Rashawn Johnson as well. Tass, what are your thoughts on the Steelers running backs? Because last week they had a good matchup and neither one of them did anything. Najee's gotten the touches, but I mean, he's not producing. They got Houston this week. And I was really on the fence, and we're going to talk start him and sit him a little bit later on. I was really on the fence about whether or not I should put those guys as starts or sits, especially Harris. But thoughts on that backfield, man, because like even against a bad Raiders run defense last week, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I think we often forget when we're evaluating Steelers players in the offseason that when you actually get to the games where the only thing that matters for the coaches and the players is winning, Mike Tomlin is not afraid to win a game 13-9. He's not afraid to win a game 16-7. He's done that so many times, whether it was Pickett behind center or Ben Roethlisberger. So I'm not surprised by what we're seeing realistically. And I don't trust either of these guys because I don't think that the recipe for the Steelers winning is predicated upon Najee Harris being incredibly effective in the ground game or Jalen Warren. Like they're just going to scrap with that, whatever they need to do to get a win. And that's it. And so at this point, like I'm probably not starting either of them. I don't mind the Warren DFS play because I think, he hasn't gotten into the end zone yet on the ground and maybe he does this week. And maybe, you get some good value there, but I don't really have any shares of them. And I'm not that I don't have any, I'm not peeved about it. That's for
I don't have any shares of either one of them either. The problem though is like if you're a Najee owner and you didn't get say Jerome Ford off the wire or a Chan, which by the way, I hate that his name is a Chan. I want a Chain. It's just cool sounding. It sounds way more intimidating than a Chan.
I agree.
I mean, Devon A. Chan, or if you didn't get Zach Moss, like you may have to start him.
Yeah.
You may have to. And I'm hoping for those fantasy managers who have Harris that he has a good game this week and then you could sell high on him or at least sell higher on him.
Maybe.
That thing looks bad. Wide receiver bargains this week. Speaking of the Steelers, Nico Collins, $5,100 against the Steelers. Take the discount after a bad game last week. Adam Thielen, revenge game, baby. $4,500 for Adam Thielen has scored 51.9 points in the last two games. That's crazy. Now I like him less if Bryce Young plays, but still I'm going to play him. And then Joshua Palmer, who's now going to be starting with Mike Williams out for the year, $4,000. That's cheap against the Raiders. Tight ends, Pat Freiermuth, $3,400. Dalton Kincaid, $3,200. And then if Logan Thomas can't go this week and you want to go real cheap at tight end, Cole Turner at $2,700.
Whoa.
That's real cheap. The Eagles have not been good against tight ends in two of their first three games. And Turner almost got into the end zone last week. He got tackled like at the 1. So if Logan Thomas is still out, I mean, and you want to go cheap, that's not a bad play.
Love that.
Now we go to the fades, and there's a lot of big names on this list, folks. A lot of big names. We'll start off with the quarterbacks. I'm not playing Lamar Jackson at $7,700 against Cleveland. Their defense is good. Their defense is really good, and Lamar has not had a ton of success against them. Tua. I know this is probably going to end up being a game where he puts up a decent total, but $7,400 in Buffalo? I don't know. I mean, Tua's been great in 2 or 3 games, but the one game where he played a really good defense, the Patriots, he had 14 points. And I kind of think like defenses be damned in this game, which basically is Bills defense be damned because I mean you could score on the Dolphins, but that $7,400 is still a lot of dough for two. I think you could do better. And then Dak of our beloveds, what the hell happened last week? Jeez Louise. I mean, come on. It's so typical crap Cowboy stuff. I'm not playing him against the Patriots at $6,200.
I think that's smart.
Running backs. Joe Mixon against the Titans at 64. Nope. Titans are good against the run. And don't tell me Jerome Ford had 19 points last week. He averaged 1.8 yards per carry.
Yeah, he was 10 for 19.
He was
10
terrible.
Yeah.
He was terrible. And he scored 2 touchdowns, and that's what saved his bacon. Ramondre against our beloveds at 62, not going there. James Conner, who popped up on the injury report, but at last report should be good to go. $5,900. He wiped the Cowboys up last week. I don't think he's doing against the Niners. In DFS, don't play him. In traditional, you got to play him. Wide receivers, Jerry Jeudy at Bears, $6,600, not going there. Nuke Hopkins, what is going on with Nuke? It's like he's fallen into the curse of the Titans veteran wide receivers, Randy Moss, Andre Johnson, and Julio. Here we come.
Talk to me real quick about why you don't like Jeudy.
I know that's probably going to end up being a higher scoring game because
you just think it's
all that great. But
a lot of Sutton action. I mean,
Sutton had a lot of targets last week. Mims is getting burned in there as well. I think Javonte Williams is going to have a good game this week. So I don't love Jeudy for 66. That's a lot of money for a guy who's not really produced that much.
Yeah.
And I don't love Zay Flowers this week at $5,700. Yeah, I mentioned Hopkins at 58 against the Bengals. And again, the Browns defense is good. Home game for Cleveland against their rival. I don't love Zay Flowers. Tight ends that I'm fading in DFS, Hunter Henry against our beloveds at $4,300. David Njoku's been awful. I mean, tight ends is such a crapshoot. $3,800 is not even that expensive. I'm not playing him. And then Ferguson against the Patriots at 35. I'm going to pass on him as well. Tight end's hard to predict. It really is,
Yeah.
Thank God Laporta's been good. Thank God Musgrave is actually showing some signs of being something in fantasy because we're hurting. We are. I mean, even some of the guys like George Kittle's had one good game this year. Darren Waller's had one good game this year. Dallas Goedert had 0 in the first week of the season. Njoku's been bad.
You're still waiting on Goddard, still waiting on Pitts, right? If you drafted those two guys.
I think we may be waiting on Pitts for ever until he is not a Falcon anymore. Yeah. I don't know if we're going to be able to get anything from him. It sucks.
Hawkinson has been good. Andrews over the last 2 games has been good.
Hawkinson's awesome. Yeah, Hawkinson. What a great trade for the Vikings and fantasy managers to see him go to Minnesota, where I mean he's their second option behind Justin Jefferson, and Kirk Cousins is going to throw the ball about 700 times this year. So really, really a good spot for Hawkinson. Those are the fades and the bargains of DFS that you should be looking at this week. Now let's go to the starts and the sits. This is what we've been waiting for, right? It's week 4. Whether you're 3-0 or 0-3, keep chugging along, man. And here are the best matchups. We'll start off at quarterback. Brock Purdy. He's averaging over 17 points per game so far this year, which is okay. Last time he played the Cardinals, he had right around 20 points. And I think this is a good matchup for Purdy. Play him against Arizona. Now, don't play him over Anthony Richardson if he's back. Don't get dumb. But if you're hurting, if you have Dak, I'm playing Purdy. I love the matchup. Daniel Jones, who's been trash for 2 of the 3 games in fantasy, I'm playing him against Seattle. I like the matchup. Their defense has given up more than 20 fantasy points to quarterbacks so far on a per game basis this year. And Andy Dalton just ripped him for 23. Andy Dalton in Seattle, no less.
Red Rocket.
So I'm starting Daniel Jones. Kirk Cousins, Kirk Cousins is like top 2 right now in points. It's Herbert and Cousins. And so I'm not going to say that Kirk Cousins is a must start. I'm not going there. He ain't Patrick Mahomes. But I mean, the Panthers, even though they've been good against quarterbacks so far this year, they've played Derek Carr, Geno Smith, and Desmond Ritter. That ain't great.
Why isn't he a must start? The only way he really burns you is if he throws for 3 picks, right?
Well, so I'm in leagues where Kirk Cousins, and most leagues where Kirk Cousins was not drafted as a QB1.
Right.
Kirk Cousins was drafted as a backup in a lot of leagues. If you have Anthony Richardson and Cousins, I think I'm playing Anthony Richardson. Now, it's close, But if I have Lamar and Cousins, maybe I'm playing Cousins this week. If I have Mahomes and Cousins or Allen and Cousins and Hurts and Cousins, I mean, of course I'm playing those guys. So must start to me is like this guy's got to be in your lineup. And I think for the most part, that's true, but not in all cases based on where he was drafted. I've got Justin Fields as a start this week, Tass. He's playing a defense that gave up a 70 burger. And that has not happened very often in the history of the National Football League. Denver's given up more than 20 fantasy points in their last 2 games to Sam Howell and Tua last week. And the more telling one is Sam Howell in Denver. I mean, Sam Howell just scored 0.6 of a point against the Bills, for crying out loud. So listen, if Fields can't do it this week, he probably won't. And Russell in that game too is a good play. I'd play Russell, who's not terrible this year. And the Bears are giving up 21 points per game to quarterbacks. So you could play Russell this week.
I think he's QB 6 in most leagues, I think.
Yeah, he's in the top 10. He's in the top 10. Yeah, he's in the top 10. He hasn't been terrible.
Okay, so I have Love and Fields. So what do? I keep asking the same question again and again and again.
Love and Fields? I'm playing Love.
Okay, that's what I want to do, but it's just
Love's been really averaging over 20 points a game. I mean, it's 3 games in a row. Like that's
who I want to play because I trust his play because we might come out of this game against the Broncos. Look, they did have 70 points scored against them, but Sean Payton is a good coach. And maybe he can figure something out. And I don't want that get right game to be against the Bears and who I know are bad, right? Like I at least know the Broncos have some competent players on their team. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what the Bears are doing whatsoever as a franchise right now. Although the fact that they have the Panthers pick, congrats to that, because it looks like that they're probably going to have number 1 and number 2, and they're going to be able to do whatever they want. But I feel for any manager, any fantasy manager that has Justin Fields right now because of where you took him and what he's giving you.
I'm right there with you, dude. Yeah. I'm playing Love. He's been better. I don't think there's any question. It's Jordan Love. Sit him quarterbacks. I don't love Watson this week. He's had 20 plus in 2 of 3 games, but it's been matchups, and he was really bad against the Steelers. I don't like the matchup against the Ravens. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points scored in this game. So he's risk reward. We talked about Dak in the DFS fades. The Patriots are giving up right around 11 points per game to quarterbacks. They held Tua to 14 a couple of weeks ago. I hope Dak has a good game. I've been wrong about Dak the last 2 weeks. So maybe you play him because I have jinxed him. But I don't love the matchup. I'm just looking at the numbers, folks. Stafford against the Colts. I mean, he hasn't been awful. He's had 300 plus yards in 2 or 3 games, but he's averaging 14 points per game. I'm not playing him against Indy in a single quarterback league. Sam Howell, Mac Jones also not playing. And then I mentioned that I'm not playing Goff against the Green Bay tonight on the road. Running backs. And this is a tough position. Really tough. I don't know if it's tougher than tight end, but it's creeping up on tight end as being the toughest position to start players with any kind of confidence. I'm playing Javonte Williams against the Bears. If he doesn't have a good game this week, he won't. The Bears defense is god awful against the run. I mean, they've been giving it up to the position. All right. They gave up how many points to Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Isaiah Pacheco last week? They all had double digits. All of them. Bears are bad. Javante's in a good spot. James Cook against the Dolphins. Start him. High total. Miami's defense has given up 15 plus points to 3 running backs so far this year. James Cook is a good spot. Jerome Ford, who I didn't like last week, and he had a bad game, but he just got into the end zone twice. That was kind of luck. Touchdowns are fickle beasts. You look at the matchup, and I didn't love Zach Moss last week because of this. Zach Moss ended up having a huge game volume. And not that I love Jerome Ford, but based on the fact that Baltimore gave it up to Zach Moss last week, Jerome Ford only had 12 carries last week. It wasn't even like he dominated the touches either, but he's getting them where they count. In all, running backs have scored 11 plus points against Baltimore 16 times since last season. So, maybe you get 14 points from Jerome Ford. You'll take that.
Yep.
Speaking of Zach Moss, I was wrong about him last week. I didn't love the matchup. I said, you probably got to play him because of volume, but the matchup's not great. He had a big game.
He looks great.
Now, it looks like a different guy, right?
Yeah.
Looks like a different guy.
Maybe it's curse of Buffalo running backs. Josh Allen just won't let anyone be that great there. I mean, James Cook's been solid this year, but he still hasn't taken it to that next
We still
level.
don't know what's going on with Jonathan Taylor when he comes back. You know,
True.
Schefter's coming out and saying that he ain't coming back for the Colts. I don't know what's going on there, but you can play Moss against the Rams. They just gave up 14 points to Joe Mixon on Monday night, and he has seen 49% of the Colts backfield touches, which is, I mean, he's dominating. He's dominating. So Alexander Mattison also, I think you could play him this week. Now, is the threat of Cam Akers real? Yes. If Alexander Mattison fumbles again, will he maybe get benched? It's possible. But the Panthers have given up 7 touchdowns and the third most points to running backs this year. So if you're in a need spot, RB2 spot, I think you can play him. And with some level of confidence, I've got Najee Harris on here. Listen, man, I mean, it depends on your roster. If you have Jerome Ford, maybe you picked up Moss and you could throw Harris on your bench, fine. Do it. A lot of people don't have that luxury. And if Najee was your RB1, and he probably was, and you don't have any, at least he's playing Houston. I don't know. Like Tass, that's the only thing I can say positive about Harris this week is at least he's playing Houston.
Yeah, but you kind of like Houston. They're a little scrappy. They are.
Nah, their run defense is bad, though. Their run defense is bad. So, like, that's where.
How was Etienne good last week? I don't have any Etienne shares.
Yes,
so
he
was
had a good game. Yeah, okay. He had a good game. I want to say he scored. Like,
and I know 15, Bigsby got in the end zone too.
Points, something like that. So yeah. No, he was good. He was good last week, and the Texans give it up to that position. So I would certainly be looking to play him. Kyron Williams, Raheem Mostert, Miles Sanders also on the stardom list at the running back position. By the way, the last 2 weeks, going back to Zach Moss, he's averaged 27 touches a game. That's like, I mean, in an era right now where we don't see that, that's pretty impressive. That's pretty impressive stuff.
In the first week, he came back from the injury. Richardson was starting at the beginning of that game, and Moss was heavily involved. So don't be afraid just because Richardson.
Right. I mean, like, Richardson and maybe the Colts coaching staff is like, all right, we want you to play your game, but maybe we'll give the ball in the red zone to Moss a little bit because we don't want this kid to get hurt again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
We shouldn't be surprised, honestly, because it's Steichen's offense. And when Richardson comes back, look what we saw Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders do last year for the Eagles. Like, it just seems to be a replica of that, which if you have Zach Moss, like, it's going to continue to be fruitful.
Yep. Wide receiver starts, Adam Thielen, revenge game, baby. Revenge game. The Vikings defense is bad. They've given up the 4th most points to slot receivers. Thielen's running 70% of his routes on the inside. So he's a wide receiver 2 flex. I don't mind DJ Moore this week. I'm kind of on the fence because Bears, because they've just been so bad. But he's playing 94% of the offensive snaps. Denver has given up 5 touchdowns and the 3rd most points to perimeter receivers. So I think you could flex him this week. Terry McLaurin. And people, wait a minute, Fabs. Are you drunk? Terry McLaurin against the Eagles? A few numbers. The Eagles have given up the 9th most points to perimeter receivers this year. McLaurin is averaging right around 17 points a game against them in his career. 16 plus points 7 times in 8 career games. He's had 1 bad game in his career against the Eagles. It's weird. It's a weird trend. If you like trends, start Terry McLaurin. Nico Collins, I think you can play Tank Dell this week too, who's been good 2 weeks in a row.
Yep.
The Steelers defense has allowed the 5th most points to perimeter receivers, 33 catches to perimeter receivers. Again, Houston's wide receivers are the 4th highest scoring group at that position. That's crazy town. We didn't expect that. We expected that receiving core to be down here at the bottom in fantasy. And instead, they're 4th. Shows how much we know. And then Jacoby Myers, assuming that Jimmy Garoppolo plays, Jacoby Myers is averaging 44 point, averaging 20, he has scored 44.6 points on 22 targets in his first 2 games. Remember, he missed a game with a concussion.
Right.
Chargers, Raiders should be high scoring. The Chargers are giving up 5 touchdowns and the most points to perimeter receivers. So Jacoby Myers is a good play this week. I like T. Higgins, even though he stunk last week. Titans are terrible against the pass. Terrible. Mike Pittman, you could get him in your lineup as well. Wide receivers to fade. Two guys that I had in my DFS fades, Nuke and Zay Flowers. Listen, I can see playing Flowers as a flex because the volume is at least there. It's been down since Andrews came back. But again, the Browns are good. I mean, they've held Jamar Chase and Nuke Hopkins to fewer than 10 points in games so far this year. Their defense is good. George Pickens, probably going to be played because he's playing a lot of snaps without DeAndre Johnson in the mix. Texans have given up 3 touchdowns and the 5th fewest perimeter points to perimeter receiver since last year. And they held Calvin Ridley to 7 points last week.
Yeah. Derek Stingley, man.
So
the guy's a stud.
Now keep in mind the Texans pass defense is a little banged up. So you want to keep you want to keep up on the inactives. Like last week, I had Kirk as a sit-em. And then when Zay Jones got declared out and then the Houston inactives came back and they had some DBs out, I said, go ahead and play Christian Kirk. He had a good game. So if the Texans' top DBs are out, then Pickens is a little more attractive, obviously. Keep that in mind. Hollywood Brown, who had a good game against our beloveds, still makes me sick, but typical. I don't love them against the Niners. Their defense is arguably the best in the league. They're allowing 14 points a game and 205 passing yards per game. That's not a lot. And it's Joshua Dobbs. Joshua Dobbs doesn't even have a jersey at the Cardinals team store, for Christ's sake. I mean,
he had to custom make it. I saw that.
Right? I mean, like, you know, yeah, he had to get like tape to put on the back of somebody else's jersey and put Dobbs on there. Although, you know, Joshua Dobbs has got more fantasy points than Justin Fields and Joe Burrow this year so far. It's like, it's so disgusting, but it's true. I don't love Hollywood Brown. I don't love Sky Moore. I told you not to play him last week. He didn't have a good game. The Chiefs wide receivers, I mean, you just never know. And I mean, I know the Jets are a laughing stock right now on the opposite side of the football, but no team in the league has given up fewer points to wide receivers since the start of last year than the men in green. I don't love Sky Moore. Did you hear that Taylor Swift is going to the game?
I did.
The NFL should send Taylor Swift like a fruit basket every day while she's apparently dating Travis Kelce. Because as much as fans want to watch Patrick Mahomes, that game is going to suck. The Jets are going to get boat raced. Zach Wilson's going to get booed off the field. And if it weren't for people interested in Taylor Swift and shots of her at the game, people won't watch. They'll turn the TV off. But hey, because Taylor Swift at the game, maybe I get to see. Listen, Taylor Swift's a hottie. I mean, listen. You know, I mean, hell, I'm a fan. I don't know one of her songs, but
you don't know you don't know one of them?
No, I don't know one.
Not even one?
I don't know one, dude. I don't listen. I admire her. She's a beautiful woman. She's super talented. She's rich as hell, making a lot of maybe like, I mean, honestly, like, I mean, hell. I mean, I don't know if she's, you know, single or not, but if she's single, if she's not married, best catch on the planet at this point right now. I don't know. So good for Travis Kelce. But her being at the game is going to keep the ratings up.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
because
I mean,
nobody who cares about the Jets, they stink.
She's been to one of his games thus far, and that game was taken off the telecast in the middle of the third quarter because it was such a beatdown. So we'll see. We'll see if we get to watch this entire game. That's what I'm looking out for. Because like, can the Jets even, are they going to be in this thing through the second quarter? Like, yeah,
they're not. They're going to get smoked. And Zach, why? And you can listen at Michael_Fabiano on X. You can go and crap on me all you want. Why not sign Carson Wentz? Why not? No one believes in this kid. Salah doesn't believe in him. No matter what he says. Garrett Wilson, I guess they're buddies, and I'm sure he's like, you know, obviously, like he wants to, you know, have his friends back. Zach Wilson's not a good quarterback. He's not. He should have never been drafted second overall. It was awful. It was a terrible decision by the Jets. Terrible. Like you saw it coming. I remember like the one good thing they said about him was that massive, you know, crazy throw he made on a pro day. Who cares? He had one good year in college. He went to BYU. Give me the last BYU quarterback who was good in the NFL. Steve Young. That's it. Nobody else. Listen.
Well,
don't get me started. Don't get me started on him.
Taysom Hill, but not a QB. Right.
Don't get me started on him. Why not bring in Carson Wentz and see what's there? Why not? You bring in Trevor Siemian? whatever. The Jets deserve their fate. Anyways, let's go to the tight ends. And remember, guys, London calling this week. There's a 9:30 a.m. game on the East Coast. One of the advantages of me moving to Florida, and there's many, not the night games, because now I can't stay awake for the night games because I'm an old man, but the London game doesn't start at 6:30 in the morning. On the West Coast, you got to get up way early, and watching a game at 6:30 in the morning is weird. I mean, watching a game at 9:30 in the morning is going to be weird too, but it's even weirder at 6:30. So make sure you get those London players in there, your Jags and your Falcons. One of them, Evan Ingram. I know it's low-hanging fruit. He's been good. He's not elite. Atlanta's defense has given up 9 touchdowns on the 4th most points of tight ends since last year, so start him. Luke Musgrave tonight, start him against Detroit. Pat Freiermuth, good game last week. Start him against the Texans. They just gave up almost 14 points to Ingram. They've given up 10-plus points to 2 tight ends so far in their first 3 games. I like Dalton Kincaid. Again, the total, 53.5. If you need a tight end against the Dolphins, they've given up 12 touchdowns on tight ends since the start of last year, tied for most in the league. Laporta, you're playing. How about this? The last I looked, and I should probably go ahead and check this out again. The last I looked in the classic slate on DraftKings, Taysom Hill was the 4th most expensive tight end. And he is $4,500. He costs more than Goddard. He costs more than Henry, Higbee, Njoku, all of them. The only tight ends who are more expensive on the classic slate this week for DK, Hawkinson, Andrews, and George Kittle. What do they know that we don't know?
I don't know.
What do they know that we don't know? Anyways, if you need to take a flyer on the tight end, screw it. Play Taysom Hill. I mean, the conventional wisdom is that they're worried that maybe he would have started the game and not Jameis Winston because that's happened in the past. But that was with Peyton.
Right.
So I think I'm pretty sure Winston's going to start this week, and it's the Buccaneers revenge game, whatever. But maybe they think Taysom's going to be more involved. But that's interesting. $4,500.
I mean, we've still seen, even on games where he doesn't start, he gets 3 rushing touchdowns because they get the red zone and they're within the 5-yard line, and he just punches it in. Right? I mean, that happens.
It
happens once a year. So
if
maybe this is the year.
Why not throw the dart? Sitting tight ends, Dalton Schultz. At this point, he may be a cut him. All right. And the problem is that CJ Stroud's not throwing to his tight end. Right. 16.5% of his pass attempts are going to tight ends. That's less than 2 for every 10 pass attempts. Do the math. It's not good. He's throwing to his wide receivers. Sid Schultz. I've got Pitts on here. And I know Pitts has actually scored a touchdown in London, like one of his 3 who cares? Right? I mean, he's averaging 6 points a game. He's scored double digits 3 times in the last 13 games. I mean, like, as much as I want to love and embrace Kyle Pitts, we want to embrace him into the fantasy football bosom. We can't do it. He's not scoring. So forget about the name. Hunter Henry against our Cowboys. Don't love it. The Cowboys have held Darren Waller and Zach Ertz the next to nothing in games this year. And then I mentioned Njoku as a fade, in DFS. Not playing him against the Ravens. And those are your starts and sits for the week, folks. Again, keep in mind, Jaguars hosting the Falcons in London this week. Hopefully Trevor Lawrence can wake up. He's not been great so far this year. So that means that you got to get those guys into your lineup and also enjoy watching. What do you think, Tass, is the best game from a fantasy perspective this week on the slate? You think it's Bills-Dolphins? From a fantasy standpoint, it's got to be Bills-Dolphins, right?
It's got to be. I think if you're a Josh Allen owner, you might end up very, very happy at the end of this week.
Yeah. If Garoppolo plays, Raiders Chargers could be pretty good.
Nah, I can't pick any game that has the Raiders in it. I'm sorry.
No. Well, no, I mean, just for fantasy.
From a fantasy. No, I know, but even still.
Maybe Broncos Bears, or are they just so bad collectively? It's just going to be a S show. I don't know. Like, I could see this being 27-24 as easily I could see it being 9-7. You know, like I don't know how to read this game.
I think we'll know pretty quickly, but
I don't know how to read this game. So yeah, I'd agree with you. Dolphins, Bills. And again, That game has actually moved to 54 now. So people are pumping up the over, obviously, in Vegas in that game. Folks, again, apologize for no podcast this past Tuesday. If I don't have internet, I can't do a podcast. I can't do much of anything. I learned that. Trust me, it was not fun. So my apologies on that. Thanks for listening in today. Hopefully we got to all your starts and sits, your DFS, everything. Remember to follow Jen Piacenti over at Sports Illustrated for her player props for the weekend. We gave you her props for Thursday night. Get those lineups set. Tass, any closing words here, my friend? Are the Cowboys going to bounce back this week?
Yes, of course. I'm a diehard, so I have to say that. Closing thoughts, I would just say if, the Monday night game, the Seahawks and the Giants, if you're a Saquon Barkley owner in fantasy, make sure you're keeping tabs on that, because if you have to zag and you have to go a different direction, you won't have another play on Sunday. Yeah. I mean, on Monday, unless you want to stream Gary Brightwell, but I don't think that's the move. So make sure you account for the injury status and just, put your thumb on the phone and make sure you're all over X and all over those injury updates. But just good luck to everybody who's 0-3.
Yeah,
good luck to everybody. Breida, maybe. Yeah. Just good luck to everybody who's 0-3, because you need this win. This is a big win for you this week. So go get it. Go get it.
All right, folks. That's it. Thanks as always for listening to the Believe Fantasy Football Show with myself, Michael Fabiano, for Tass. We will see you guys next Tuesday, unless I don't have internet again. Hopefully I will. Have a great weekend. Good luck.